Hello, welcome. This is a mapmaking tutorial for Lingo 2 inside of Godot 4.3 steamworks. The thing I'm going to cover today is the gravity ramps that I coded for Lingo 2 and that you might recognize from the Icarus map. So when you want to construct them, you'll want to instantiate the child scene of RampDoublesided. I have a number of these already duplicated down here so I can demonstrate a number of things. And these are the constructors for the ramps. So right now they're just a ghostly ramp, but that does not actually reflect what will come out. So if I change that to 180 and then make it, you now have a ramp that curves 180 degrees from start to finish. So let's go to this and let's explore the options. So degrees of rotation simply determines how long the ramp should be. If I make it past 360 and a skew of 0, you won't really notice anything because it'll just be making itself over and over itself again. If I were to make it 1080 and then I was going to give it a skew of 6, skew is how much it goes to the left or right, so I can put in a -6 to make it go in the other direction, after it is built. So this is the -z direction of the ramp. So if I look at this over here, I now have a ramp where I have a little corkscrew here, and it's going around. So the skew is what's allowing it to move to the side like that. You have one skew is equal to one full rotation. So now let's go over here. Let's make my skew -3 for 1080 because 1080 is 3 full rotations. And now I have a, well, that's exactly the amount I needed to get a perfect cylinder going. So now I have a gravity cylinder where I can walk on the side of the cylinder and really make everyone who gets motion sickness really motion sick. My next option here is building walls, inside, outside, and none. So outside, I'm going to have this this kind of square-looking thing where it sits flush against a wall. Inside is just going to be the opposite of that, where it's now making it for, this is for putting up against a, do I have an edge here? Yes, I do have an edge here. This is for putting up against a floor and walking on the inside. You are familiar with these kind of ramps if you have played Icarus. So, bam. That is not lined up. Whatever. I don't really care about the small details. I do care about the small details. So now when I walk along this, I could be walking along, and all of a sudden my gravity will tilt as I go off the cliff. Like, whoop! And all of a sudden, hey, when did my gravity change? So that is the outside ramps. I can build collision for the inside, outside, or both. So right now if I build none, but I build my collision only for the outside, let's see what that produces. So this will produce no walls, so it's not the inside, it's not the outside walls, it's just neither of that. But if I go down and look at its collision, I only have a box for the inside collision. So it's not really caring about the outside. If it was caring about the outside, sorry, I only built collision for the outside, not for the inside. So that's why this is so large, because it's trying to capture the entire area by which you might walk on it. Boxes, however, are poorly suited towards outside. If you really wanted that, you should actually kind of make it down here like this. And that's kind of large, so I would even shrink it. And then this would be a better capture for walking on the outside. Let's actually make that go down a bit more. And up a bit more here. So this way, when I'm walking on, I am actually captured when I'm walking on from the bottom of this curve. And I am actually captured as I come into this part of the curve, although I might make that a little tighter. So you will want to play with the activation yourself, which is one reason you can just add as many collisions as you want here. These will now all act as outside activation, and this will all act as anyone's under here will now act as inside activation. I also have different shape of collisions, so I can make a tube, which is kind of useful when I'm making something like that 1080 beast, or hell, let's just multiply that by 10, and then -30. And tubes, let's build a collision for both. No, I guess, oh, my maximum degrees of rotation is 720. But that's no problem. You can chain together multiple of these as you really need. And now I have tube collisions, so I just have a single collision again for these because a tube is enough to fill up the entirety of this. So now I have a smaller collision on the inside and a larger collision on the outside. And that's great for moving stuff. I also have, so when you go into, well, I guess I need to make one. I'm going to show you another way of making concave polygons if you really want. So now let's build the collision for both, and let's build walls none. Let's do this for 7200, and I don't know, negative 15 or whatever. Boom. Oh, you know what? That wasn't a great example. I should have made larger skew. Let's copy this a few more times. So let's make my skew, yeah, let's make it 30 and 720 and concave and both and none. Boom. Now you can see what concave is. So concave, if I go down to the programmatic ramp here, which is the actual ramp thing that's constructed, you might notice, no, that collision is actually manually made. Never mind that. You might notice I have a little mesh button here where I can create a collision shape, and I could do something like create tri-mesh, single mesh, multiple max, simplified, multiple. This is actually what I'm doing, except in code, and this is making all of these lovely collision shapes. So I'm just going to delete these, and let's go back to... This was actually close enough that it just made a single collision shape. So this perhaps was not the best demonstration. Let's make one that is, say, instead of, let's go for 1080 and 1080, thank you, and negative 15 skew, which should give it 5 distance between. You'll see why I'm kind of doing this. Boom. Here we go. So now, unlike the tube, which would capture me, anywhere within the ramp, this tries to capture me only within the confines of the ramp. So I do have holes which I can peek through here, and it does try to capture me everywhere inside the ramp. So I can fall through this ramp and not even hit its collision, which is good because it's a nice corkscrew, and that's kind of what you expect. And it should also hit me everywhere on the ramp. If I was using box collision, there would be pieces like probably a corner cut off here where there didn't happen to be collision. So you can manually mess the collision, you can manually fix it. This is kind of like a cure-all solution that's low effort, so you can try this before manually making all of your different collisions. What kind of... Oh, I see the shapes are over here, even though the origin is here. So you can make all sorts of... You can also make your own collisions here manually, as I kind of just alluded to. So I can make a sphere collision and put it somewhere and scale it up, and now the sphere collision, which is stretched, by the way, by the transform of the gravity ramp, has a 2.33 Z direction stretch by default. And now anywhere that you would enter the sphere, it's going to act like you tried to enter a ramp. So you can find that useful for tweaking your ramps if you have a lot of them in close proximity, or you're finding that they're having trouble capturing the player at full speed. There are different situations where the gravity doesn't work for everything. Essentially because Brenton indicated that these would be used as puzzle pieces, where the ramps would be everywhere around, say, the entry or the grate and similar places, and you would later find out how to use them. So I wanted to make sure that they were hard to enter on accident. So you're not going to enter them just by walking by and accidentally pressing the right button. You needed to consciously know what you're doing unless you're really lucky. So with that regard, I have several things here which are made to restrict it further. So prevent skipping and prevent capturing determines the size of the collision. Velocity restrictions, so only walking, only when you're, actually walking and not running. Walking, running, obvious. Always can also capture you if your terminal velocity is higher than the running speed. So I can be falling past a ramp and be grabbed onto it if the velocity restriction is set to always. Angle restrictions are the same thing. I can be within 30 of the entrance or exit of the ramp, which are going to be it's not going to be like this part of the ramp. It's going to be either the base or the end. So if I have something that goes 270 degrees around. So now it would kind of judge, okay, you have entered my collision and you've entered it within 30 degrees of this or 30 degrees of this angle here. If I try to enter the ramp from here, it won't work because I've set the angle restrictions to within 30. That also means that if I'm falling past a ramp, I won't be automatically grabbed onto it, even if I'm, say the ramp is in this direction, which is, my current up direction from the camera, so it's the easiest to show. I could be, let's slow down this movement, I could be falling past this, and if the angle restriction is low enough, this ramp could actually say, well, I've looked at your angle, and it's, it's within 90 degrees of the start of this, so now all of a sudden I would be snapped into this ramp and walking on the ramp. And that's probably not what you want to happen when you're falling through, but it might be, so that's why I give you that option there. Now, Gravity inside points towards center means that instead of trying to push you onto the ramp, it'll try to get you to the center of the ramp, and you'll often be slowly rotating and slowly moving in one direction as it happens. So that can make a nice little anti-gravity tube or elevator if you want. And ramp cannon means that it actually gives you a little boost in... I have the individual transformations on here, so local space transformations on here. So now I'm seeing where... So this right now is the global Z, global X, global Y. I click this on. I'm now seeing the object's Z, the object's Y, the object's X. And the object's Z direction is pointing downwards. So the ramp cannon would constantly be giving me speed in the direction of that Z axis while it's on. But that only applies for when you are hitting the inside collision of the thing and not the outside. Now, the last thing to see from this constructor is the snap gravity on leaving the ramp, because when you have a ramp up against a wall, you know, like boom, up against this wall here, and I am walking up this... Let's actually construct this so it's easier to see. When I am walking up this ramp and I try to jump off from, say, right here, and I want to jump off onto the floor, I am not expecting to now be at a 45-degree tilt to the ground constantly. I am expecting to be snapped upright so I can walk normally. So that is what the snapping gravity will do. It'll always try to snap you to either the beginning of the ramp, which is where its origin is here, right here, and where this gizmo is always going to be, or the end of the ramp, where you're expecting to be dropped off. So you can do that nearest by degree and favor the base or wall by degree. You can do it nearest by distance. So nearest by distance is more useful when you have something like a cylinder or a corkscrew. If you are 60% of the way down the corkscrew, you probably want to be snapping to the gravity at the end of the ramp instead of at the beginning. So, you know, if the corkscrew ends up being 180 degrees different gravity from when you started, you probably want to end up... You probably want to end up walking on the ceiling as you're getting towards the end of the ramp. That's what nearest by distance is for. And of course, you can also do base and wall. Again, base is going to be that is, wall is going to be at the end. Custom up. No matter where I leave the ramp, I will now be going in this direction. So I'm just going to quickly show you what I mean by that. So 100 is going to be pointing straight to my right. So where's the ramp? Oh. The ramp constructors are there, so that's kind of, don't leave those in your level. So right now, I'm walking up the ramp normally. And if I leave the ramp on either side, it kind of just works. However, if I try to jump off the... Oh. X1 is this direction, so I believe, yes. I didn't realize. I was trying to make it go sideways relative to the ramp, but right now I'm trying to get up to the ramp. Let's move out of its collision. Oh, I see. It's just wonderfully always snapped me. There we go. I did enter it. So right now, I look like I'm going there, look like I'm going there. I exit the ramp, and it snaps my gravity back to that same place. So no matter what I make this, and 001 is going to be the angle that I actually wanted to get, no matter where I exit this ramp, from one of its ends or from the side, I forgot about those, I'm going to end up falling sideways because I set that custom up. So what that up is actually intended is for you to choose either the base or the end, or maybe an in-between degree, so that the ramp is one way, or that you can be guaranteed that the player has a particular up direction. I don't care what game design you use it for, but it's going to give you a single up direction. Do not snap is, of course, the kind of the opposite of that. If I leave this angle, I'll just walk in and show you. If I leave this ramp at an angle, like say this, now I'm just at this angle. I am not looking at the floor, I'm not looking at the wall. This is the situation you normally want to avoid, but there are valid reasons for having a ramp, you know, game design and otherwise, for having a ramp that doesn't snap you. Like, you might have a corkscrew that is inside of a larger room, and each of that room has gravity setters. So I'm going to cover those in a second. So, and the last one is snap to nearest cube face, which basically it says whatever ending you're on, I want you to snap to straight up, straight down, straight right, straight left, etc. So if you have a room made on a diagonal so that the walls are kind of like a diamond relative to this, then it's still going to snap you 45 degrees to those. But as you can see, like, As far as making a ramp like this, between cubic faces, it just works, and that's probably the one you want to use most often so that you don't have to think about the base or the wall or anything else, and so that if I have a ramp that is, 180 degrees over, I could use it to get to here, I could use it to get onto this wall, and I could use it to get on the ceiling, all because snap to nearest cube face. So those are the snapping degrees that I have. Now, let us go into the other gravity stuff real quick. So, gravity. I have a gravity listener. Brenton actually made this one from one of my stuff. I haven't looked at it too closely, but all it does is it sets your up rotation. This is your up angle to a given axis when it gets triggered. It just works in the receiver sender system, so you can use this like anything else. The other one is going to be the gravity setter. The gravity setter is what you know is the gravity flipper. And I actually designed this node, minus the decorative grid map, which Brenton added, so that if I'm walking on, say, a 45-degree angle on the wall, and I don't want to be, I would place one of these, probably invisible, over that entire wall, and then it would correct your gravity to be away from the wall. So this is kind of something I thought Brenton might use a lot if he was going to mess with the ramps, and he didn't want to babysit them, essentially. So boom, now I have this giant wall. If I were to land anywhere on this wall now, it would correct my gravity so that I would be facing, kind of so that this is my up direction. Now this is my upright camera. So that is why it says normal to floor. Brenton used these as gravity flippers. What that means is that, oh, I didn't set the scale. What that means is that instead of any of that, what Brenton did is he went and used the custom axis option, and he said -1. 1 is straight up, so this is now straight down. I'm gonna load in the map. So custom axis, this will be looking down. And now as soon as I come in, I'll be hit by that gravity flipper and I'll be warped upwards. Where if I put normal to floor, it'll just do nothing. Now, it's not actually doing nothing. It's not actually doing nothing, although it kind of appears to in this context. If I was falling in this direction and I clipped this, it would now make it so that this is now my up, and I'm now walking on the floor. And default gravity just means it's always going to set you to walking on what would be the floor if there's no gravity shenanigans going on. So I figured that would be a very convenient setting for a lot of stuff. Like, before you go through world port, you would have one of those there. Tilt happens because the world port I used, I thought it set your rotation. It did not. So I set that to have a rotation that goes to the normal rotation, and that's not what it does. That door was also added very late, as Brenton kept falling off of Icarus, and said I don't want that to really happen to people. Okay, so that was your very, very brief introduction to all of the gravity nodes.